Welcome to round 3 of the Press Pause podcast. Today, we're going to lead off with a bit of a sad note, unfortunately, and that's the passing of Satoru Iwata, who was a very, very large influence in the gaming industry. He was the president, correct? President and CEO of Nintendo, and he had a very, very large impact on gaming in general, from Mario on down. And me and Tony here would like to pass our condolences on to the family.
Absolutely.
And say that we are very saddened by his passing, especially because he was pretty much the single-handed reason why Nintendo was staying afloat.
And trying to get back on the right track, too. Because we've never been hesitant to criticize Nintendo for the decisions they've made in the past and are making today. I don't know much about the man personally. It sounds like he went out of his way to make sure that Nintendo had gamers at heart. And on top of that, him being a programmer, believe it or not, I think made it a lot easier.
I think it's a pretty big statement to say that after Nintendo was looking down the path of the Wii U and they saw that they're heading in the worst of directions, seeing that the Wii U was not selling, and he took a pay cut. And by pay cut, we mean he dropped half of his salary just to say, all right, we need to get on the right track. You can take the rest of my money, and we're going to fix this. And that's something that, in this day and age, let alone ever, doesn't happen, where people are really just money hungry. And he decided that, well, I don't need that money, though I do. But I can see I can get it back if we can fix this and we can make this go in the right direction. And he decided that after they were going in such a terrible place with bad decision making all around, maybe some by him, maybe some by a lot of other people, but he saw the bad decision making being made and said, I want to fix this. I don't care if anybody else doesn't want to fix this. I don't care if they think we're doing the right thing. I want to fix this.
You know what it's equivalent to? We watch sports. So admittedly, we're mixing analogies. It's the equivalent of an NFL veteran who's considered overpaid, who takes a pay cut because they think they're too old or replaceable.
Yeah, it's the equivalent.
Or maybe it's equivalent to someone who was a good player, coming off an injury, decides to sign a one-year contract, bet on himself effectively making more money the next season.
It's the equivalent to a Tom Brady and a Peyton Manning saying, I make a lot of money, but I want to win. So I'm gonna you can take a chunk of my pay, you can take a lot of my pay, but I want players around me, I want people around me that are going to help me win. And that's what Satoru Iwata did.
Yeah, that's what he did. He helped program Balloon Fight. I never played the game on the NES. I played the game on the emulator.
I played the newer version that they made for the Wii U. There was a small, it was in the Wii U party pack that came with the Wii U, and it was, I thought it was familiar, and I didn't know that I played it before until months after. I'm like, oh wow, so that game that I was playing, wow, that was a game that I played when I was a baby, basically.
Yeah, and I first started playing games when I was 5 years old, so, really dating myself was like 1989, and the first thing I played was the NES, and I remember how much fun I had with it. Especially, being a kid means a lot of things. It sometimes means being stuck in your own head too many times for too much of the day. Definitely. Even when there's a lot going on around you. It's just the world revolves around you to some degree. It's, there's Super Mario Brothers. There was,
Do you know the game that got you hooked?
To the Nintendo Entertainment System?
Basically to gaming in general, but yeah, let's call it the Nintendo. You know, game that got you hooked on Nintendo?
Easily, it was Super Mario Brothers. It was Super Mario Brothers Duck Hunt.
Duck Hunt. That's funny.
I actually got Metroid for my second game, but at the time, because I had no sophistication or taste in games, I didn't like it, so we ended up returning it.
Makes sense.
Now I realize how foolish that was. I have the original Metroid on the 3DS now, so I play that.
I think the game that got me hooked was Super Mario 3, the one that's basically a play, which is really funny. I never owned the original NES, but my cousins did, and anytime I went over to their house to play, they had the Mario Duck Hunt and Super Mario 3, and I played Mario Duck Hunt because I love shooting the screen, and I played Mario 3, and I thought it was just cool to run around and jump on stuff, especially as a child, just running around, doing whatever you want.
Slightly breaking, I remember when my Nintendo Entertainment System broke quote unquote. By the way, it didn't break. But I was young and it's a weird experience. Is that I remember the second that the Nintendo broke because I wanted it fixed. It never did get fixed.
Did you try to fix it on your own?
No, I didn't.
I was that kid. I was the dumb kid who liked to take things apart and fix them.
No, I did that to some things. I was, for some reason, very, very hesitant to do that with video gaming systems. I actually got smarter in taking things apart because when I got the Super Nintendo, the same thing happened, and then I realized it's really weird. You remember those RF switches that would connect to that you would hook up to the back of it?
Very vividly. Looking at one right now.
I put 2 and 2 together, and I said, this is the problem. Let's give it a shot. And it fixed the NES. The Super Nintendo. I was like, oh my god, if I gotten an RF switch for the Nintendo, it probably would have helped fix the problem.
The way technology rolls.
Yeah, nowadays but basically it's a coaxial cable.
I don't think there's any way that an RF switch would work nowadays. I don't think any TV has a cable input. Everything is either HDMI or component, and components being phased out.
Yeah, I'm sure they're still made, but just not nearly as much as it was, say, back like 20 years ago.
Well, it's a good thing that HDMI is definitely making its way in, because HDMI is an all-in-one solution. Everything, here you go. Sound, video, and sometimes even internet, and here you go. Everything's there.
Of course, with the maximum, the best possible fidelity in both respects, and also because digital, we went from analog to digital.
Yeah. So anyway, back to Nintendo. With his unfortunate death, where do you see, or what direction do you think Nintendo should go in?
I actually have a slightly controversial way.
I'm listening.
I would consider bringing Miyamoto in to be the president, Shigeru Miyamoto. I don't know if he's a programmer. Iwata was. Miyamoto, though, I think captures the essence of what a gamer is for Nintendo. I ultimately think Nintendo in general needs new blood, which, going on a different podcast...
Well, he's 62.
Yeah, that's the thing. He'd be, only in transition. He'd only hold the job for so long before ultimately someone came in.
I don't think it's a bad idea, but I do think that I don't think anything that they could do would be a bad idea unless they want somebody who says no more games, which was a way that they were kind of looking in going. But I think they need to look at someone who is more in the now, who is going to look toward the future and say that we need, like I said in many other podcasts, that we need to look to boost our hardware and wow gamers with beautiful scenery and games that work and games that people want to play.
Yeah, not to mention there is some degree of politics that comes to video games.
Right.
Because it's the most infuriating thing about businesses at times. We, of course, in the United States, we always have pride in, for some odd reason, for businesses that are good at one thing and stick with it. But when it comes to changing gears, companies are just about as slow as a government to adopt new ways of thinking and new technology. So there's going to be a need, but whoever ends up succeeding Iwata, to appease the old guard while at the same time introducing new ideas and new perspectives into the equation. I mean, I would also argue that this is a problem throughout a lot of game publishers in Japan as a whole.
Their pride?
Not just about the pride. I think pride has only a little bit to do with it, but I think it's a matter of just the way they're shifting focus is kind of weird. Like Konami, Capcom are shedding a lot of big name developers, and honestly that's another topic in of itself.
Well, I don't know how Capcom is dealing with it, but I think that Konami is doing the absolute worst possible thing. I'm pretty sure that they were the ones that forced out, wow, his name just dropped from my head, Hideo Kojima. They pretty much just drop-kicked him out the door, and they're the ones that made that mistake. I don't think Nintendo is in any way trying to go in that direction. They definitely want to step into the new age because they're looking in a mobile market, which is weird considering that their Game Boys and 3DSs are hands down the best mobile platforms, and that they want to go now to actual cell phone mobiles. It doesn't seem like a very good direction to me, but if they want to do that on top of making the Nintendo Wii or the next system better and better and better, I'm all for it.
I think that's ultimately what's going to happen, is that mobile is going to become increasingly more multi-platform. I think Nintendo's kind of realizing that on their own.
But the way they talk about it, they're talking about mobile and smartphone platforms like it's the new wave. It's what we're gonna bank on. And I know that the Android platform, which is what they're gonna base their new console off of, I know that it's not just it's just mobile. It's not. It's obviously in use for other things and can be used for a a gaming console. But it just screams the wrong thing to me. It screams, "Hey, mobile, we want to make for smartphones," and they need to say, "Oh, Unreal, here, come here." Well, I think we talked about it many times before that Nintendo might be better off, and it would be the craziest thing to ever happen. They would be better off pairing with Valve and Steam, and combining that massive junction and making a Giga company. That would be the ultimate thing for them to do. Might not ever happen, but it would be the greatest thing for them to do.
It probably will never happen. Because number one, as good as the idea is, it's Valve. What I mean by that is they know who their audience is.
Right.
They cater to PC gamers. PC gamers are considered more, quote, hardcore, unquote, for what that's worth.
But they could take that to the Nintendo. They can take that to the next system. They could, instead of making these stupid PCs for your TV, basically, make Nintendo system, high-powered, high-graphic Nintendo system powered by Valve. Can you see that? Nintendo powered by Valve.
It's crazy enough to might work, because once upon a time, Nintendo and Sony almost made a PlayStation.
I had pictures of that. I'm going to try and put them on screen if I can figure out this video editing thing.
But either way, Nintendo has tried in the past to partner with gaming companies. I mean, it did it with Philips for the CDI.
Right.
Or it was a CDI or 3DO.
I think they did the CDI, and then they just partnered with the 3DO for a little bit. That was Panasonic. The 3DO did.
Yeah, because what ultimately happened was they ended up the company ended up wanting to do the deal just because they wanted the licenses for the games.
Right.
And they released those two horrible Legend of Zelda games.
Oh.
And maybe that's why there's such hesitation to bring in like other companies. I think Panasonic is primarily based in Japan, though.
Yeah, I think so.
And Sony, same thing.
Right.
Though honestly, it's safe to say they're multinational at this point because they're just big. Nintendo's multinational. It's got a headquarters in Japan. It's got a headquarters in Seattle. So one would think that there is more openness in Nintendo to bolder ideas, and some of their ideas, like some of the old guard ideas in Nintendo, are still good to this day and age. It's just a matter of how do we get the right mixture of nostalgia, and we know this works too. Let's take a bold step. You don't want to go too much in either direction.
Right. I keep seeing these, not memes, but inspirational quotes on Facebook that say, if you're going to take a big leap, it should feel scary to do because that means you're going in the right direction. And I think that Nintendo has been taking my old way of thinking about life and saying that, well, this looks safe. We should just do that.
Yeah, I'm actually going to withhold judgment at Nintendo when it comes to this new NX system, and even with Android, because there could be something bold underneath it. I mean, imagine, for example, say Sony tried to do something with the PlayStation 3 and PS Vita, and Vita just, for as good of a system as it is, it's just you don't hear anything about it.
They had a chance. They could have made it work, but the Vita was not a good seller. It was pretty much too expensive, was most of the problem, I think.
Yeah, but it still had really good features. So I'm wondering, with the integration of Android technology, whether it be operating system or other miscellaneous software and hardware, would it be possible to have these games transfer from the system to a phone in particular, or allow things to be allow more possibilities when it comes to gameplay mechanics, themes, etc., as well as controls. Honestly, motion controlling isn't as bad as it seems, and to be fair, Nintendo has done motion control far better than Sony has or Microsoft has.
Very true.
So Nintendo could probably do motion gaming better than most.
But they should stop with it. They should stop. They really should stop.
I think they should stop banking on it because it's becoming too much of a gimmick. The Wii U isn't selling well, not because it's selling motion as a gimmick. The motion thing is a given at this point. Yeah. And of course the big tablet of a controller. I don't have a Wii U. I have been seriously considering getting one probably later in the year.
It's not a bad thing to have. I only got it just because because I'm a system hoarder and I like having new things. The Wii U is not a bad platform. It just doesn't have games. It doesn't have the games you want, more or less.
Yeah, which is a whole nother debate in itself.
The biggest game out for it is right now Smash, and in second place, in my opinion, which is only my opinion, is probably Wind Waker, which is a port. Well, it's an HD port.
Yeah, and supposedly the next gen Legend of Zelda is coming on next year.
And they say it's going to be. They say they're going to make it for the Wii U, and then and do like they did with Twilight Princess and port it over to the next system. I hear.
this does bring up an interesting conversation. Game mechanics.
Game mechanics.
It's not really talked about a whole lot. This is a gaming podcast, so
For now.
we're gonna...
I'm just saying for now. I didn't want this to just be a gaming podcast, but we are gamers in general, so it pretty much looks like it's going to be a gaming podcast.
Yeah, but so we're just going to dig deep into the woods, so to speak, when it comes to things such as gaming mechanics and themes and such. I mean, this is game analysis taken to the next level for people.
The floor is yours. Go ahead.
Now, what do I mean by gameplay mechanics?
Well,
just in case
go ahead.
Someone does need a primer.
Right, I was going to ask.
Is that they're the constructs of rules or methods designed for interaction with the game state, and thus providing gameplay. Turns, action points, cards, capture, eliminate, catch up, dice, movement.
So it's the difference between moving 3D motions controls in the original Resident Evil and how Resident Evil works now, which is still 3D motion controls, but it's over the shoulder. Those are two completely different game mechanics, correct?
Yeah, I would think, maybe not completely different, but I would say the current control system for Resident Evil is probably just a far better executed control system than, say, any time before Resident Evil Code Veronica, which is the last time they did those kind of controls. Actually, that's not entirely true, because they ended up making a couple games that still had the classic Resident Evil feel to it by having the classic camera angles. Like, for example, experience points.
So,
like how experience points is a game mechanic. You do an action, for example, whether it be, let's say in the case of Final Fantasy, you get most, if not all, of your experience exclusively from battling.
correct.
You get a lot of your experience points in Fallout from doing that action over and over again. Same thing with Elder Scrolls. I don't know the mechanics, how it works on ESO.
For the most part, I think it works the same as it did in Fallout, where as long as you do... Yeah, it does. As long as you do that action, it's kind of how the way I wanted to mold the game that I always wanted to make. As long as you use that specific action, you will get better at it. If you don't use any others, you're never going to be able to use them, because that's not your forte. So if you want to use a one-handed sword, use a one-handed sword all the time, and you're going to max that skill out. But if you don't use two-handed swords or a magic rod, then that's just going to stay at one for the entire time that you play.
Precisely. I would also argue, like staying on Final Fantasy, and it's something I've thought about a whole lot of times, is that there are gameplay mechanics that are very familiar between 6 and 7, for example. I always go back to the Esper in 6, and I think the Materia system in 7 expanded the Esper system even further.
Really?
Now, level with me here. When you got an Esper in Final Fantasy VI, it's been a while since I've played it, so of course I very well could be wrong, was that there were a couple benefits that you got when you equipped an Esper. For starters, it would raise a stat. It would also give you magic, and it would also give you the ability to summon the Esper. I also think there was a risk too, that like there were attributes that were lowered as also as a result of the Esper. Materia system did the same thing, except that once you mastered a Materia, of course it split off and it gave birth to a whole new Materia. And then, if you mastered every single magic Materia, command Materia, summon Materia, that you could just go to Cosmo Canyon and get the master Materia, get all that stuff together, and in essence, the cycle starts all over again.
Provided you finish the specific missions to actually obtain those Materias. But yes, you are absolutely correct. You're making me want to play Final Fantasy VII again. This is very bad. I don't want you to do that. My life will be ruined. I already played Destiny too much. If I go off playing Final Fantasy VII, I'm never going to see the light of day. I'm going to get fired from my job.
My bad.
Damn it.
There is some mechanism, there are gameplay mechanics which are very, very good, and I think role-playing games displays a great deal of complexity, more so than other games.
I think role-playing games get their mechanics done right more often than not, whereas other games, more often than not, get them wrong. You only see a few shooters that get it right, and you only see a few fighting games that get it right.
Yeah, like a favorite game of yours, Braid, for example.
Oh my god, Braid...
What is the best game? What is the gameplay mechanic in that game? Time manipulation.
Braid is the next step in evolution from Mario, and Braid was, if not the weirdest story, it was a simple game. It really was, and it tested your thought process of, all right, should I slow down here? How do I do this? And then sometimes you had to use your shadow to do things for you, and sometimes you had to lay down a time manipulation item to stop time or slow down time in a specific spot. Braid was a masterfully done game for as simple as it was. I love that game. That game is in my top 10 list for best games. which is strange considering the amount of games that I played.
Yeah, I'm going to also argue that Mirror's Edge was a really good example of gameplay mechanics. Sure, it was a first person.
It's strange.
Hear me out, though. There was no first-person shooter, and honestly, I will take this to my grave, that had the ability to move as quickly and as smoothly as Mirror's Edge did.
Mirror's Edge is a parkour simulator.
Yes, that's true. Ever since then, though, you have games that have tried to capture this essence of parkour. Titanfall did it with parkour system.
They did it pretty well, although it did teeter out in the end.
Dying Light did it too.
Dying Light, is from what I hear, people are saying it's if you took Mirror's Edge, and I think they said Call of Duty, or not Call of Duty, if you took Mirror's Edge and mixed it with Dead Rising, you've got a game.
I don't know. Dead Rising, I only played the first one, so I hope they're talking about Dead Rising 3.
No, you played the good one. Don't worry about it. I never played 3, which I do want to play, but Dead Rising 1 is still probably the most fun one. I never beat it. Got very close. I got to day 3 and died every damn time. But it's a great game. It's a funny, weird, absolutely strange story. But man, it's just fun to go around with the sword and chop zombies, and then get freaked out when they all turn into this hive mind zombie thing that can pretty much kill you in one slap.
I think you would have really liked Blade Mode in Metal Gear Rising then.
Oh, that damn just button mashing game. Maybe I would, maybe I wouldn't.
And I don't think a lot of people. There's another really good example: the listening mode in The Last of Us, which you still haven't played yet, you bastard.
I played through a little bit of The Last of Us. I watched The Last of Us, which is probably the better way to do it.
The better way to do it.
I'd
do what?
say,
Play the game.
I want to give a shout out to whoever I watch. Hold on. I think it's Rajamon Gaming HD. Yep, Rajamon Gaming HD.
Watch him play through the game?
He played through the entire game, I think, on the second hardest difficulty, and played through it almost flawlessly. And it was fun to watch. And I think I watched Bioshock Infinite that way, too. Because those are games... Well, Bioshock Infinite is a game that I've never got into, which I think was free on Xbox Live Gold at one point, and I did buy it. And I plan to play it eventually. But I knew that wasn't a game that was for me, but I always wanted to play it just to try and get into it, and I said, screw it, I'll just watch somebody else play it, because Let's Plays are a thing, and it was fun to watch. It was more fun to watch than I thought I would ever have playing it. That's why I still haven't played it.
Because you think you water down the experience.
Yeah, pretty much.
But either way, the listening mode in The Last of Us is actually one of those things that I'm surprised that wasn't come up with earlier.
That was a pretty cool game mechanic.
Yeah, there's actually a good deal of parallel between the detective mode that Batman uses throughout the Arkham game series, except for starters, Batman has a button for almost everything.
Yeah, true.
Like, for every situation, he's the guy who thinks one step ahead, maybe 2 steps ahead. Whereas, in listen mode, you have to pay attention not only to where the sound is coming from, but also where that clicker or runner is, or bloater, I think, because those are the 3 primary, I hesitate to say zombies, because I don't think that completely encapsulates what it is. But we'll just stick with that for the time being. That you had to pay attention. You absolutely had to pay attention to where that sound was, especially in the case of the clicker. Because if you tried to tack it without a perk, you're pretty much instantly dead. The runner, yeah, that's a lot easier. The clicker, real shaky, bro. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I hear you. The clickers were weird. I mean, again, as not playing the game, the clickers were always like a tense moment. It feels weird to say because I didn't play it, but as I was watching it, as acting like I was playing the game, it's really weird to say that when the clickers were around, it was like, oh, wow. Dude, don't move. No, don't move yet. No, he did it. Oh my god, he got past it. That's one of the cool moments. I think you're right. That listening mode is well, for that game was a perfect mechanic, and I think it could in some certain specific shooters maybe could make a comeback.
I agree. I definitely agree. There's also, like, multitudes of examples. I'm going to circle back to Nintendo and see what kind of unique gameplay mechanics are there.
Okay.
I don't know if Super Mario would qualify for that, in part because, well, there wasn't a whole lot of diversity in the power-ups. There was invincibility, there was Super Mario, there was Fire Mario. And that diversity shone through far more in, say, Super Mario Bros. 3. When you had
the Tanuki suit,
the Hammer Brother suit,
and
the
frog suit. I think the frog suit was in 3, right?
Yeah, it's another one. And those are more situationally based. Like the frog suit was just far better in water stages.
Ghetto. I like using the frog suit outside of the water stages. It was fun.
And the Hammer Brother suit was amazing. It really was.
Overpowered, some would say.
OP. And then those gameplay mechanics shifted significantly once it went 3D in the 64. And would introduce, Metal Mario, or Wing Mario.
Metal Mario!
And also Flood from Sunshine. Which I still think to this day is an underrated mechanic.
I love that game so much.
Yeah, so people who are looking to go hipster in this case, Sunshine is not really a bad game at all.
I don't know why people don't like that game. It's fun for the sake of fun. That's all it really is. There's nothing actually wrong with that game. I mean, there might be the story's weird, fine, whatever. So there's a little child Bowser, who may or may not be his son, may or may not be him from a different timeline. Shouts out to Game Theorist. But, you know, it's fun. It's a whole lot of fun running around with Flood and him turning into a rocket, him turning into a dual pair of water spouts that shoot you up in the air. Everything about that game is fun. It is hard and it is fun. Sounds like something I'd like to do. Not going X-rated with this.
What about Metroid?
Metroid game mechanics? Metroid game mechanics, I think, have gone through the most evolution. If you consider it started out as a platformer, a side-by-side platformer, and turned in now to Metroid Prime, a first-person shooter platformer, adventure game.
Well, and on top of that, there was a lot of innovation in Metroid at the time. It was non-linear gameplay. And on top of that, you were thrown in the middle of a situation. You were not given any instructions on where to go. You were basically on your own. It was the good/bad thing of Metroid, by the way. This is partly why I probably didn't like it that much. Yet, for some reason, I took to Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest, which was pretty much not too dissimilar from it, because it threw you in the middle of a situation. I don't know at the time. That stuck with me better than, say, Metroid did.
It's strange to me that people say that those are very similar games, which I'm sure they are, but I never could get into Castlevania. Super Metroid is in my top 5 for best games ever, and you're right, especially Super Metroid, which is basically a clone of Metroid. Almost all the Metroid games are clones of each other. But they slap you smack dab in the middle of a map and say, do whatever. And then you find out this is where you have to go. From there, I have to figure out how to get to the next spot. And every step of the way, they're giving you something new and having you learn how to use that something new. Metroid is a masterfully done game. Now we're talking about masterful games here. My God. Oh, the nostalgia is real.
The Super Metroid as well. I mean, that game was a technical marvel at the time it was made. I would argue that it's held up extremely well.
It holds up today. I have it for almost everything. I have it for my Wii U now, and it's not like they gave it any kind of graphical update, and it still looks beautiful. It looks great. I mean, for a 16-bit, 32-bit game, it looks fantastic.
On top of that, the addition of so many other things. It took the missiles concept further by adding super missiles. It took power bombs. It put the speed booster. It put the grappling beam, the save system, which helped make that game far more accessible.
I think it saved video games in general, giving you a save. I think. Wait, let's see.
Metroid 2 actually was the first one to have a save system.
Did it? Okay, because I don't think the first Zelda didn't have a save system. That one, I think it was password based, right? I think so.
There actually was a save system in the first Legend of Zelda.
There's a little battery in the Legend of Zelda, really? Wow. Okay.
I'm fairly sure of that. We got to make sure to check that out.
I'll cross-check it, but keep going.
The suits, for example. You need a various suit to go into hot environments, the gravity suit to go in water environments, which was used in Metroid Prime. I
say Metroid Prime is a clone, is a 3D first-person shooting clone of Super Metroid, as Super Metroid is a up-res clone of the original Metroid.
That's probably one of the most flattering things that anyone can say about it. That's a lofty expectation, because at the time Metroid Prime was made, a lot of people were afraid that it would turn into Call of Duty.
Okay.
A mindless shooter. After all, it was consider the context. First-person shooters were starting to finally flourish on consoles after it took GoldenEye, basically. I still think GoldenEye 007 was the console shooter that basically said it's safe to make a first-person shooter for a console.
That was the turning point for shooters everywhere.
Well, not everywhere. I would say Doom for the PC and GoldenEye for the console.
But I think GoldenEye had people are going to be mad at me, whoever wants to watch this podcast, I think GoldenEye had a bigger following. I think Doom had a hardcore gamer following, I guess, as people wanted to get better at playing that game and play it competitively. Where I think GoldenEye was all right, let's get three of my friends over and let's have a tournament and see who can survive the longest on the temple with proximity mines everywhere.
You see, this is where the PC gamers would say, well, we could do that over the modem and the internet. Because this is back in the day, so to speak, that they had the ability to play across places, and on top of that, at the time when cable modems and such was probably far more expensive than it is today.
Alright, can confirm that The Legend of Zelda, the original Legend of Zelda, had a rewritable disc to be able to save the game instead of passwords. It was the first time for any cartridge-based game to have saves.
Yeah, I believe it. And a lot of people probably went away from Metroid. And Metroid in part because of the password system, because sometimes the password doesn't work.
A fault in the game. Imagine if it worked today. It'd have patches out the ass.
So what's an example of bad mechanic and bad gameplay mechanics?
Bad gameplay mechanics. You got me thinking.
Here's one thing that actually might surprise you. A possible example. Destiny's exotic weapons.
You mean RNG?
No. The exotic weapons overall.
Oh, because I would, after the last few weeks, I would definitely say RNG.
This is very true, because that game has not been kind to you at all when it comes to drops.
I want to make this the last thing we talk about for Destiny on this podcast, but let me just say, for the past 5-6 weeks, I've gotten one exotic from every Nightfall. Just one in the last 6 weeks. One exotic. That is awful. I hate you, RNG. I want an exotic, or I want my etheric light. Gimme!
After all, since you're relying purely on chance to get exotic weapons, you have no idea how or what exotic weapons you're going to get. It seems kind of silly to rely on randomness to give these weapons that sometimes are overpowered, which is another story from another time, and some that are just not useful.
I think, it is a bad game. In a way, it's a bad gameplay mechanic. Some of the things, like right now, the thorn is the biggest thorn in their side, but the thorn is overpowered, and the last word is overpowered. Those are two exotic weapons in Destiny that are extraordinarily fantastic guns. But almost anybody can get them, especially the thorn, because the way to get this exotic, which I think should be the way to get almost every exotic, it should have its own quest line, is to kill a certain amount of enemies, to do this quest, and to kill specific enemies in a specific way in PvP with a specific type of weapon. And it's a fantastic way to make you have to get this gun, but everybody could get it, and it became this ultimate weapon that everybody uses in PvP because it's a two headshot kill. Simple. No problem whatsoever. And me, as a head seeker, it's not that big a problem. I aim for the head. I always aim for the head, and I don't miss often. So when I use the thorn, I turn into a great player, which, by all means, I am not a great player in Destiny.
He's competent.
Okay, I'm competent. But, it turns mediocre players like me into, almost close to top-tier player. Whereas, the same with the last word, it's a shotgun that can shoot from across the map. It's an insane weapon. The way to get these guns, this game mechanic, might be a little bit broken because of how they work.
But again, we're going to go into that in another podcast because we're going to cover a good deal about the changing meta of Destiny as the 2.0 update comes out prior to the release of Taken King.
What do you mean in general by this game mechanic, though?
What?
Well, what do you mean is bad about it? What is bad about that game mechanic?
Again, I think I'll throw you an example here. I personally think the way they did the exotic bounties, Bad Juju, Thorn, Super Good Advice, Invective, Queenbreaker's Bow, Dragon's Promise, Lord of Wolves, that's predictable. There's a way to get it. You're relying, so out of how many exotic weapons in the game, which goes easily close to 30, those are, say, the only examples of where you can completely rely on yourself in questing to get those weapons. You do not know if you're going to get the next 15 or 20, and so on. That would be an example of bad gaming mechanics.
So you're saying that the bad mechanic in general is the scarcity of these weapons and the way of getting these weapons, basically?
It's a combination of things. Like I said, the fact that some of these exotic, number one, it's hard to get these exotic weapons. You can get the same exotic weapon many times over before you get one that you want to get, for example.
There are a total of 28 exotic weapons in Destiny right now.
Yeah, so what I basically described was you can only get roughly a quarter of their weapons through exotic bounties. The rest is totally up to chance, which is either fair or not, it's still kind of crazy.
So of those, what did I say, 28, you can get 8 of them. 8? I think that's what I said. 8. You can get 8 of them through bounties.
Yeah, I said 7, so I was off by 1. Kind of surprised that I was that close. Here's something that's frustrating for a lot of people, and was addressed by Final Fantasy, was random enemy encounters.
People hated it, but I thought they were great.
I think they added a good deal of unpredictability, but some people still think that there are a lot of people who do think that random enemy encounters doesn't make sense. Why is it in there?
It seems to me, I mean, you have to look at it logically, and random encounters are there for you to learn how to get past the next part. You can't. There are people who do these ridiculous runs of low level encounters for almost all the Final Fantasies. You know, don't level up, don't use the next best weapon, only use this weapon, so on and so forth. And I think they're crazy, but you know, it's a fun way of doing a game in a general way. But the random encounters are there so you can get stronger. That's the reason they're there.
How about QuickTime events then?
I don't think they're necessary, but I don't think they're a bad thing either. I think they can be overused. I mean, look at God of War, but they're it's not a bad thing if you put them in the right spots. It's QuickTime events were made to I'd say make the cutscenes of video games accessible. I look at Heavy Rain, which is one of my favorite games, even though it's not much of a game, is that it's a game of 100% QuickTime events, basically, if you really want to look down at the total of the game. And it's all right, push this button now. All right, do this thing now. And it makes you feel like you have a part of the game. Now, whereas God of War, it's, all right, you're ready to finish off this Cyclops? All right, now press X. All right, now at this moment, press B. All right, he's dead. And they do it all the time. It's pretty much a running gag.
Or, if you want to think about it like this too, it's basically it's a viscerally satisfying conclusion. How is it any different than, say, a fatality from Mortal Kombat?
Current fatalities or old fatalities? Because you had to be very, very good to do old fatalities.
Then we'll go with new, since those are more modern.
Okay.
Like going back to Mortal Kombat 9, which was only released in 2011, I believe.
Well, those are, okay, that's new fatality. So you're talking just, all right, you have a set amount of time to do this specific thing. Oh, you got it, good. Here's what your reward is. And that, to me, is that's a good example of good QuickTime event. Even though it's weird to call it a QuickTime event, because then that means we've had QuickTime since, 96? I think that's when the first Mortal Kombat came out.
I'm kind of surprised that you would compare Mortal Kombat fatalities to QuickTime events, because some people would make the argument that a fatality doesn't really affect the outcome of the gameplay because you've already won.
Right.
You're in a position to have a fatality or an animality or fatality or anything sort of those normal, any of those outcomes. The outcome is already out of the outcome of the game is already won.
Wow. Mortal Kombat came out in 1992. Holy crap. I don't know whether that makes me feel old or I didn't realize that game came out so early.
Probably a little bit of both, actually. And some other thing as well. But there's QuickTime events in Resident Evil in 4.
Yeah, Resident Evil 4. Which I've been watching a lot of Michael Jones' Let's Plays in. Fun to watch.
Well, yeah. He's as big a Resident Evil fan as I am. Throughout 4, 5, and 6, there are QuickTime events. I would say 6 really dialed back on them a bit because a lot of people complained that they were over relying on them too much in 4 and 5. It's always easy to take this to extremes, and not to mention some people do think it's laziness, that they're substituting QuickTime events for actual gameplay, when really QuickTime events is the same thing as the gameplay itself.
Okay.
You just aren't doing nearly as much as you would like in that situation. And of course, it just brings heavy sighs and after that.
Pretty much a here we go again kind of thing.
Yeah, more or less. And it's not exactly the most flattering thing, so to speak. Did it ever bother you? You know what? What I will say is that for random encounters, you know where it actually felt really annoying?
Where's that?
Pokemon.
Really?
Yeah. I didn't think, and here's where I'll be fair, too. They gave you a list of which Pokemon were going to be of which places.
Before we keep going, we are huge. And I mean huge. Too big for people of our age as adults. Huge Pokemon fans. Continue.
Was that they gave you the ability, make calls, call out for the Pokemon. So there was some degree of determinism on trying to encounter a Pokemon that you really wanted to get, but it also depended on the rarity of them.
Back to RNG.
So it did become annoying to a fault, because if you're looking for one Pokemon, you're looking to catch them all, because after all, that's what you're supposed to do.
Gotta catch them all.
That's something you want to get. You want to get a specific kind of Pokemon, and sometimes when you fight the same Pokemon over and over again,
it can get monotonous. It gets monotonous.
It does. That's what I mean by annoying and where random encounters.
In that way, I could agree, but I think the only point in time where it gets monotonous to me is when you're in a cave and you're fighting off hordes and hordes of Zubats. And I think they even made it worse in a way now because they made hordes. They made you have to fight 5 at a time. And I mean, I don't think that random encounters in Pokemon is a bad thing at all. I mean, I don't understand. I don't know how you could make it better. Any ideas on how you make it better? I mean, aside from making it a third person walk around and you see a Pokemon you want to fight type, go out and fight that type Pokemon. I don't know how you would fix it.
I would be hard pressed to find a solution to that. Couldn't you do something akin to what they did in Final Fantasy XIII, where you can literally walk up to the monsters, like not to have like the real time battling that Final Fantasy XIII would have, because Pokemon doesn't have real time battling.
I don't know that there's a way to do that, only because in Final Fantasy XIII they kind of messed up in that you only had a set amount of enemies in every place, and Final Fantasy XIII had some issues in that it was very linear and that you could only level up to a certain point in every section of the game. And you're only playing as either Lightning or Hope or Snow or Fang or Vanille, my favorite. And you had a set amount of enemies on screen. Some places, especially because it's story driven, you had like 15, maybe 20. And they would either get very easy or very hard, but you had to reset them, and the only way to reset them is to leave said area and come back. And then you're just making this very annoying... It makes it worse than random encounters, because you're resetting, and now you're fighting the same enemy over and over, and then, I have to change screen again and come back and fight the same enemy over and over. Whereas random encounters, you don't know who you're going to fight, you can't prepare for it, but you have to be ready for it.
Yeah, that's just grinding.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what I do. Probably why I hated it. I grind in those games. Good God. I'm going to play Final Fantasy XIII again. You're making me play these games. Stop it!
Dude, I can't finish 13. I just can't.
It's really easy. The story's easy. The story, to finish the story, is very easy. I haven't played 13.2 or 13.3, if it were Lightning Returns. But, the story to 13 is pretty easy. The story itself is not very good, but,
that's why I can't finish it.
It's fun to play. In its own way, it's very fun to play. It might be because I like the grind sometimes. I like to sit down and just, alright, I'm going to fight this enemy about 300 times until I get the item I want. Sometimes. But, it depends on my mood. Every game pretty much depends on my mood. Where do you want to go from here?
Let me see. Final Fantasy. I don't know why I did the kind of training I did for Final Fantasy VII. Spoiler alert: I leveled all my guys up to level 100.
99.
and because my end goal wasn't to beat Sephiroth; it was to beat the weapons.
Yes, that was the most satisfying part of that game.
It was. It very much was. So, in my fervor to beat them, I overpowered my characters to such a point that I actually made going through the story far easier for myself.
That's just the thing we do. And you know what? Beating those weapons, in a way, isn't that hard now that you know the strategy, is it? I mean, except for Ruby, who's still a goddamn asshole, but they're not that hard. Emerald Weapon is simple. Emerald Weapon, I can beat Emerald Weapon without the underwater materia. And that's how easy Emerald Weapon is. Ruby Weapon is a bastard, even with the strategy. Still easy with the strategy, but still a friggin' bastard.
Speaking of gaming mechanics, let's talk about something that's probably going to be at least going to creep up on people, especially next year. Virtual reality. We've been down this road, people.
Headset gaming. Ugh.
However, there is a legitimate possibility that Oculus Rift could buck the trend. A lot of people are making the big deal about 3D gaming or virtual reality gaming, because of course there's porn for both of that stuff.
Porn drives the market. I hate to tell you people. I'm sorry to tell you that the only reason you're using Blu-rays right now, or pretty much on the internet for any reason whatsoever right now, is because of porn. But let's step away from porn and go back to the games.
Avenue Q, the internet is for porn. That's a song, by the way. That's a legit song. I've actually seen a good deal of Markiplier's gameplay videos. Shout out to Markiplier, by the way.
He's done a VR game?
He's used Oculus Rift.
Oh.
He actually got the Oculus Rift SDK before they released they made public the retail version.
I think the only Oculus or VR gaming that I've seen has been from Rooster Teeth. They've done a couple of games. One that I really want to try. I think it's a bomb defusal game, and another one that I don't remember the name of any of these games. But there's another game that looks really interesting, and you need a partner for. Is one of you looks at the screen, and you have a set amount of directions, and you see the man, whoever is using the headset, and you can tell where he's going, and you can tell all the enemies that he can't see, he or she, sorry. And the person wearing the headset can only see the direction that they're going in. They can't see around the corner, so you're directing the person through every step of the way. Don't step on that trap. Don't get caught by the guy who's around the corner. Oh no, somebody's about to catch you. Run away. Stuff like that. Seems really cool.
Yeah, I recall Joel and Adam both in one of their how-to videos. I believe it's called, I think it's French. Mieri?
Mieri?
M-A-E-R-I? Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce it, but by the looks of it, it's French because the name of the monster is called Le Mange Lumière.
Uh-huh.
So my guess is it's French.
Ha 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 ha. Sorry, couldn't resist.
Yeah, even Markiplier did a video on this too. Who made the decision, survival horror.
Right.
Joel and Adam also made, before they did the how-to series, they did an Outlast, which had them play it through an Oculus Rift.
That had to be great.
Oh my god.
I should watch that one.
Yeah.
Oh no, I did watch that one. Yeah, that was great. Oh my god, that was funny as hell.
Yeah, it's funny how much they antagonize each other, and I can tell they're just so into it.
Sometimes I like Joel and Adam. Sometimes I hate Adam. I've grown to love Joel again, but
yeah, Adam's got a ways to go.
Adam, I don't like to criticize these guys, but Adam suffers from the same problem that I had with Joel. Is that every now and then he is being annoying for the sake of being annoying, and it pisses me off.
By the way, though, when he does pull off being annoying well, he pulls it off really well. So he's halfway on the Caboose track anyway.
Everybody's close to being Caboose.
Caboose doesn't even know it.
I see.
But that's a separate issue.
Read out. Volgar among the sheep.
Among the sleep, you mean?
Yeah, no, I said sheep on purpose. Ho hokum. No, that's not it.
Thank you, Ryan.
Space engineers.
I'm curious to know what kind of games are for the Oculus Rift right now.
Well, there's obviously no actual games, right? I found it. Maere. M-A-E-R-E.
Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce it. It's either Mier or Mieri or... Okay, so there's a list of games with Oculus support. Wow. Oh my god.
Do I want... you're going to say Alien Isolation, I'm betting.
Yes.
Yeah, there's no way in hell you could ever get me to put on Oculus Rift and play that game, but I won't even play on a screen.
Yeah, about to say, you won't even play it on the freaking Xbox One. I'm not banking on you playing on Oculus Rift.
No way in hell.
7 Days to Die, apparently, has the Oculus Rift support.
Support and actual functionality are two different things.
This is true. Dying Light, Elite Dangerous.
Oh my god, the game's so fun.
The Force, Half-Life 2, Hawken. You see, PC gamers, lots of love your way.
Me.
Minecraft. No, canceled.
Cancel? Okay, I was going to say, we had heard something big about that.
Oh yeah, I remember, because at the time Notch was still in the company, still owned it. I think because of a possible relationship between Oculus and Facebook, Notch deep-sixed Minecraft for the Oculus Rift. And Slender the Arrival. Nope. Not surprisingly, many of these games are horror.
Yeah, they pretty much have to be. Because if you're VR gaming is probably only made for horror. They're made to scare the shit out of you. That's it to me. Or puzzles, that's it. Horror puzzles.
What about RPGs?
I don't see how that would work unless you give me a lightsaber.
What are the odds that someone's already thought about that idea? I would definitely think that's going to happen. Yeah, by the way, Dying Light, according to Wikipedia, is planned and not available.
I'm pretty sure someone's rigged it at this point. 7
Days to Die, oddly enough, confirmed.
Confirmed.
Wow. I actually do not know. When the heck was 7 Days to Die on Kickstarter? Either way, I'm digressing.
kind of hoping you were going to say on Xbox, because I kind of want to play it on Xbox.
What, 7 Days to Die?
Yeah, because I don't feel like, well, my computer sucks, so I don't really want to play it on my computer.
Spoiler.
Yeah, spoiler, you have a behemoth. Let's move on.
No. I was about to say, that people who are listening are probably going to be thinking, well, this guy should upgrade his PC. I'm like, you really have no idea at all.
Money sucks, people. Money sucks.
In the sense that it goes away.
Fast.
But it's one of those odd concepts, Oculus Rift, where virtual reality gaming actually was considered at one point in the 90s. There's something called the Virtual Boy.
Ugh.
And a lot of people will bring that up and how insane that system was.
I played it and liked it.
By the way, the company that made that was Nintendo, by the way.
Back to Nintendo. We'll circle back around for our last topic, which I really want to get into, but back to the Oculus Rift, or VR gaming in general.
I think more like the Oculus Rift, since it's the most mainstream, we'll guess, for lack of a better term.
It is the biggest name. I mean, if you're thinking VR games, you think the Virtual Boy, which makes you think bad things, and you think the Oculus Rift, which makes you think, oh, maybe they are headed in the right direction.
Yeah, it's one of those things where technology failed the first time and they're giving it another shot, which there's still a lot of skepticism regarding if VR is a long-term solution or a long-term implementation of video gaming because of Virtual Boy's failure. Do you think it will fail again?
I want to say yes, only because I don't ever want to put on... It's like the whole motion control gaming thing. I don't ever want to have to do something to play games. Which is unfortunate. I mean, it just makes me sound lazy, which I am somewhat, but you don't want to stand up and play your games. You don't want to have to walk when you play your games. Some people do walk on a treadmill when they play their games, which is fine and all, but I
would try that, actually.
It sounds like a good idea. I would even try it since I'm a fat bastard. But to me, when I have a Kinect only because of the voice activation. That is a lazy feature. That's why I have the Kinect. Among other things that it works, seamlessly with some other things, which is cool. But VR gaming, you're gonna have to put on this big headset. You're gonna have to be immersed. It immerses you, which sounds cool. But you're gonna have this headset on, and you're gonna feel the headset, and you're gonna be freaked out by it. And oh my god, this headset! And all right, walk forward. Oh my god! Yeah. And then you're gonna get motion sickness, and then it's all gonna be bad. It's not a very good way to do games unless you get the full dive system. Because I want to play Sword Art Online. For real. Lock me in. Please, dear God, lock me in.
I'll bring it up. That would be funny.
What would be funny?
Rooster Teeth made a VR game from the perspective of Sarge or Church or Donut.
Coming soon.
By the way, call me. Call me, Rooster Teeth. I have plenty of ideas. It's all gold. Guaranteed to at least bring in $1 million.
I mean, they already have Laser Team coming out later this year.
This is true. The point is that it will really depend on whom is sold, what game developers are sold on the potential of Oculus Rift.
I think it depends on the immersiveness, and not just the Oculus Rift. What was this showing at E3? The one for Microsoft? HoloLens. The HoloLens looks like it's on its way to being pretty fantastic, and from what everybody I've seen talk about it says it doesn't look bad, and the Minecraft demo that they showed looks like it really works, and the immersive stuff that they showed in E3 for Halo there was really pretty cool. It was a walkthrough of one of the ships. I can't remember the name of the ship. Probably Forward Unto Dawn, but it seems like they are going in the right direction. But I don't think you can do it for a game because there are way too many variables in what you have to get right for VR gaming. Because like with the Virtual Boy, it made people sick, and it could mess with your eyes. And if you're going to get it right, you're going to give people motion sickness, and you're going to make people's eyes terrible, worse than they are today. It's all really a bad idea, and it sucks to say that an idea that can be good is bad because it's going to be bad for people.
Yeah, but these are also people we're talking about here. If they think the risk is worth the reward, if the risk is worth going in for something like this, they'll take that chance. Now, the risk is on many levels. For example, it's a financial risk, number one. Number two, it's a potential health risk, number two. Number three, it's a social risk.
Yeah.
Because if they're really into it, then they really are going to be shut-ins for the rest of their lives. Or until they reach a point where they finally say, yeah, I think I'm done for the time being. To tell you the truth, they're probably more along the lines of an MMO. If you're into it, you're really into it. If you're not, you probably can take a step back.
Sword Art Online confirmed. Full dive system coming soon.
Just, don't die in the game.
I won't. I will live there forever. I will be the best. The very best. Like no one ever was.
Kirito for the win.
Alright, I want to get on the final topic. And I know it might set me off, so I'm gonna try not to yell. And we talked about it, I think we talked about it the last two podcasts a little bit, and a little bit more in the second podcast, and it's that ESPN is now getting into Major League Gaming esports. And they are now heading in the direction of broadcasting esports. Fantastic thing. If I were a kid growing up today, which I really wish I was, their parents can actually look at them and say, "You want to play games for a living? Go ahead. You can make a lot of money doing this." Because even my parents, who are the parents of the decade, who will tell me that I can do whatever I want. It doesn't matter what you can do. They still told me, don't play video games. You're never gonna go anywhere playing video games. And I don't blame them, but I really wish I grew up today where I could look at playing games as a profession. That I can get good at playing these games and make so much money. But beside the fact that ESPN is now getting into broadcasting esports. And a personality on ESPN whom I used to like, and maybe I do still like him to a degree. Maybe his point is valid. Maybe it's not. But he decided that if ESPN was going to make him broadcast or make him cover esports, that he was going to quit. And that person is Colin Cowherd. And he decided that he was going to quit. You're an ass.
It's amazing how kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy that became, isn't it?
You are an ass. You know what? He's going to bounce back on his feet. Good for him.
Of course he is.
Yeah, I mean, he's a big personality, and of course he's going to bounce back on his feet. But you're taking this stupid, not chance, but you're taking this stupid line into something that people find fun, and it's to me like telling people who are playing basketball nowadays not to play basketball, and it's telling some sportscaster back in the day who was covering tennis or covering the all-white baseball teams, no offense, don't want to get racial on you, but that's what happened, and covering all these teams and saying, oh, no, basketball is not going to be a thing. No, football is not going to be a thing. No, tennis, people are never going to watch tennis on TV. Don't ever put me on TV for people to watch tennis. And now, what do we have? We have ESPN. We have every single sport, and I use that word loosely because we see the World Series of Poker on TV. We see every single sport on TV now. And esports is now a thing. It's a sport, generally speaking. But it is a sport, and it's part of your network, which paid you all that money. Why are you going to back out of this? Why are you looking down on people who are chasing a dream, which is a great dream to have? Because it seems to me like what he's doing is saying, well, fuck video games. Nobody's ever going to want to watch video games. This is stupid kids playing video games, getting paid lots of money for it. Who cares? Yeah, I can say the same thing about everybody playing every single sport. They get paid
every athlete on the world.
They get paid so much money, way too much money. I'm not mad at them. They get paid doing things that I would love to be getting paid to do. You don't shit on people's dreams, and that's what you're doing. You're shitting on people's dreams by telling them this is bullshit. I'm not going to do this.
Not to mention, it does show a vestige of that jock mentality that is so ridiculous anyway.
And he's not a jock.
He is a guy who comments on jocks. That's what Colin Cowherd usually does. And let's take a look at the bigger issue, for example. There is a league called Major League Gaming. There actually has been an MLG for quite some time. Has it been for all games? No. It was founded fairly recently, though. It was 2002, so obviously it's not that big. I believe when ESPN first started broadcasting esports, they broadcasted a MOBA, Heroes of the Storm. And it didn't get a whole lot of ratings on ESPN. It got about 100,000 viewers. I honestly think that Twitch could conceivably broadcast this, and it probably could get more viewers. Because number one, broadcast television is kind of dying off to some degree. I don't say dying off. That's actually taking it too far.
It's falling. It's falling down. It's definitely
down. I would say it's turning downward, not upward. And Twitch is basically the future.
There is a possibility that Twitch can become to to video games what ESPN is to sports. And I'm hoping that happens, honestly.
I embrace that possibility.
Yeah, I really, really hope that happens.
Except I hope that Twitch maintains its openness to everyone,
Absolutely,
not just the sponsors. Like, I subscribe to Ray, shout out to Brown Man. Today, I subscribe to King Cathalion, who's a well-known Destiny streamer. I like him better than Professor Broman. Because Cathalion, I don't know, he makes no he makes no qualms about it that he's basically a man-child. However, he doesn't use that as a stick. He actually has made very salient, very reasonable points, and seems like a guy you want to hang out with. I'm sure Professor Broman is the same. I mean, there's persona that's projected, because people aren't just watching Twitch just to see gaming. They're there to see personality, too.
Absolutely there to see personality, yeah.
Spoiler alert. Even antisocial people want to see personality. I would actually argue some would want to see more personality than a lot of people would expect.
I agree, because I love seeing real humility, because in the very few people that I follow on Twitch at the moment, and I'm going to follow more because I'm going to be watching Twitch more and more over the next few months and years and so on and so forth, is I follow Miss 5000 Watts, who's a Destiny streamer, and she said she only started, playing games or rather playing Destiny and streaming Destiny only recently. And to me, I know we're getting a little bit far away from Major League Gaming, but to harp on the Twitch side of this is that I like seeing humility. And I watched a video a couple days ago, and I used to watch videos on YouTube of seeing people's reactions to this and people's reactions to that. And I saw she was getting donations, which, to some people isn't that uncommon, but it's not very common for her. She was getting a $1 donation, like, oh, well, thank you, that's cool. You don't have to donate. You really don't have to. I do not want you guys to donate. I'm just doing this for fun. And then people started doing the donation train thing. Somebody donated $1, somebody donated $2, somebody donated 10, somebody donated 11. And then she started getting 50 and 100 and 101 and 120, and she started to break down in tears. And that, to me, it was heartbreaking, because she even started talking about it. Like, she was in depression at some point in time, and it was really hard for her to make this decision, and the things in her life that she was going through, and she decided to do this, and she decided to play games and stream it online, and she's so happy and thankful that people want to watch her. And me and you, we both suffer through a depression and are probably currently suffering through depression in our lives, that we would love. I'm not in this in any way, shape, or form for money. I'm the same way. Like, when we start Twitch streaming, we're just playing games because we feel like playing games. And you might not even see my face when we Twitch stream. You might see Tony's face when he Twitch streams, because that's something he wants to do. But for me, I'm a fan of just, I feel like playing this game today. Here you go, stream. You can watch me play. I might play awful. I might play great. Who knows? But it's really awesome to me to see people do these things, going back to Major League Gaming and harking with Twitch, to see people do things that they love to do. To see Ray Brownman, who his passion is playing video games, and he's getting paid to do it, and people are paying him because they like his personality and they like his gameplay. And when you see people in Major League Gaming who are people that I want to be, who are people who have put in hours among thousands of hours playing a game, getting so good at a game that they can't play with normal people anymore. They have to play with other people in their level, and kicking people's asses in shooters and any other kind of game out there. And they're getting paid lucrative amount of money, and deciding, I want to go pro. Now that's a thing. Now you can decide, you know what? I think I'm good enough that I can go pro, that I can get paid to do this, and I can get paid to play this game that I love, and I can get paid to play against other people who might be as good, if not better than me, and challenge my abilities. And when I see Colin Cowherd say that, I don't know his exact words, so maybe I'm shitting on him for something that he didn't even say, or maybe I'm just putting words in his mouth, but everything that he just did looks to me like he is saying video games are stupid, and people shouldn't want to play them to get paid. People are doing the job that he's doing. I'm doing this because of a thing that he does. He talks to people on the radio day after day. He has no co-host. He talks to himself for hours on end. That could be stupid. People can think that is stupid. But he does it, and he gets paid to do it. And that's cool. That's great. Somebody might want to do that. I want to do that. I want to get paid to talk to people on the line. I want to get paid to play video games for a living. I want to get paid to do these things. You can't talk about people's passions and look down upon them.
I'm actually trying to get his not his exact words, but like very close to what he's saying.
But his overall maybe reasons for leaving.
No. Believe it or not, it has not been articulated if he was forced out or he decided to do it on his own or it was just mutual.
I don't think he's been forced out. It's pretty clear that he said, if you're going to make me cover Major League Gaming, then I'm done here.
Yeah, it says, here's what's going to get me off the air. If I'm ever forced to cover guys playing video games, I'll retire and move to a rural fishing village and sell bait. You want me out? Demand video game tournaments on ESPN, because that's what appeared on ESPN2 yesterday. He also happened to say, of course, as is the case with most people who happen to have watched way too many Revenge of the Nerds and still don't have the slightest idea of what it's like to actually be a video gamer these days. Of course, someone who happens to live in his mom's basement, which is so hilariously outdated that even the guys from Revenge of the Nerds are probably thinking, "What the hell were you thinking, man?"
Yeah, what are you thinking?
Or more potably, The Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, The Big Bang Theory. But let's look at this again. Look at this logically. It may not be athletic.
Yells at Cloud.
Yeah.
It really is.
It may not be athletic. Okay, it's not an athletic thing. You need endurance, as we talked about last time on our last podcast. You need endurance to be able to do these things, and that's one of the aesthetics that you need to do to play these games. You have to be good, and to get good, you have to practice. All right, there are kids out there throwing a baseball out there today, trying to throw a fastball, trying to throw a curveball, trying to throw a changeup. There are people out there who are trying to hit said curveball, fastball, changeup. They are practicing. They are trying to get better at the craft that they want to do for a living. Or maybe they just want to do it for fun, and then hopefully one day that turns into something they can do for a living. That's what sports are. Sports are not bounce ball, throw ball. Sports are not score points. Sports are, all right, I'm pretty good at this, and there's a competitive nature for it. Let's do that competitive thing.
Yeah, honestly, I think there is some legitimate case to make that people who play esports are maybe not athletic in the conventional sense when it comes to physical fitness, but mental. There is some degree of physical fitness associated with gaming. Like I said, I do think endurance is a big thing about playing games, because after all, if you're really into games, you're not playing 1 hour a day. You're playing 6 hours a day.
I would kind of say, like, look at people who do desk jobs. All right, they're sitting at their computer typing away for 8 hours a day. Do you think they love doing it? Do you think it's fun? Or, well, let's take the fun out of it. But do you think it's terribly easy to sit at a desk all day typing letter after letter, typing number after number? It's tiring. It's not easy to do.
Yeah, it would not be any. It probably is harder for someone who happens to be, doing physical labor all day, for example. It's more physically taxing. It is physically taxing to sit in an office chair all day, because there are a multitude of studies that say that, spoiler alert, sitting down on a chair for an extended period of time is actually quite bad for you. And it slows down your metabolism, it makes you more susceptible to disease, etc., etc. It's why people are jumping on the standing desk craze. Because you burn more calories more efficiently just by standing than by sitting. And there's reaction time, there's ability to think ahead, like practically almost pre-cog levels of thinking. And we're talking about supervillains who you expect to bring them down in the first move, but they thought that far ahead. It's like Sasuke Aizen all over again. Where any move you thought of, he's anticipated in advance.
He's already thought of 6 things past that.
Yeah. Granted, that doesn't happen a whole lot, because we're people. We don't happen to think we have a tendency sometimes to not think about the consequences of our actions 2 or 3 years from now, like 2 or 3 months from now, never mind 2 or 3 years from now. There's, of course, an extraordinary amount of thought that are put into actions and everything. But in all likelihood, if you plan 2 or 3 steps ahead and the person you're competing against has thought that far ahead, you're pretty much out. There's no plan. If you have a plan A, B, and C, you're pretty much out of plans. There are some people who do have plans D, E, and F, but that's extraordinarily rare. And not to mention they would have the mental and emotional composure to realize I'm at that point, because once you start running out of ideas, it's very easy to get caught in the tilt and panic.
It sounds weird to say, but you can basically harken pro gamers to that of pro chess players, and I mean,
I agree.
And you can really basically say that, because they have to think moves ahead. They have to think, okay, well, let's take shooters for example. Okay, if I do this, where is he going to be in this second? Oh wait, I'm going on this side of the map. All right, at this point, most people would use shotguns. Oh wait, no, I have to use this weapon because I might get destroyed. They're thinking of everything. It's not simple. It's not easy. And just because it's a game, which people do for fun, everything's a game. Basketball is a game. Football is a game. Baseball is a game. And they're playing CSGO. That's a game. And you know what? They're fantastic at it. I would never play any of those guys in Counter-Strike Go, because they would kill me. I would spawn on the map and they would know exactly where I'm going and they would pop me in the head. I can't do that. They are great at it. They're getting paid for it. Good on them. And I'm glad ESPN is finally looking at it and saying, you know what, we need to hop in on this trade, even if it is just a money grab. Who cares? They're actually looking at it as a legit thing, and that's the first step. It really is.
With that said, no game, no life.
I think that's pretty good to leave it off. Thank you. God. No game, no life, people. No game, no life. Thank you for joining us on our third podcast. The second podcast should be up soon, hopefully, if I can figure out this editing thing. Just so I can remind everybody again, my gamer tag on Xbox Live is Xeno Masters. That is Xeno Space Masters. It'll be in the description below. Tony's gamer tag is DerKampferXXIII? 23. DerKampferXXIII. Don't worry about how to spell it. He's an asshole. I will put it in the comment or in the description below. Thank you for joining us. Come back next time, probably Thursday, Friday, or Saturday, sometime around that. Look, it'll be out. It'll be out at some point in time. I can't guarantee. I have a life outside of doing this. I have a job. Things suck. Work is hard. But this is fun. So I'm going to try and get this done. So thank you for joining us. Join us next time. See ya!
Later.